Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at, well, to be honest with you, we're going to be taking a look at a really cool idea on how we can maximize our XP gain buff and really give ourselves a huge boost to experience gain. But let's dive in. So obviously experience in World of Warcraft is, generally speaking, buffed in a couple ways. There's notable events like Darkmoon Fair, etc., where we can receive certain EXP buffs. Something that I'm going to say is that right now there are so many different variations of EXP buffs that you can get over a 40 to 50% buff depending on your character and your account. For standard characters, you're looking more at the 30% buff. That's quite easily accessible. For characters that have quite a few, or players that have quite a few max account characters, you could be looking at over 50%. But let's talk about how we get there. Well, first and most notably, we must talk about the WoW anniversary. You'll see that I'm here. There's a reason for that. The WoW anniversary provides, during its duration to the 8th of Jan, a 10% flat buff to reputation and EXP gains. This on its own is pretty good. But each character can come to Yelana from level 15, complete the Celebrate Good Fun quest, which requires you to just complete participating in daily activities, which we'll talk about a little bit now. You can obtain this buff, and it will last for 12 hours on your character. Now you might say, but then I have to refresh a buff on my characters every single day. No, this is not the case. This buff lasts for 12 hours of playing time. So by completing this quest, we immediately will have two 10% buffs that are stacking on top of each other. That is a 20% buff in total. Now completing the celebration activities quest is actually really simple. For the most part, the easiest way is just to fly around for a bit and participate in the story time, Mount Mania, and Fashion Frenzy, which are the three that you can see here. This is story time. This one will be Mount Mania, and this will be Fashion Frenzy. They cycle every 15 minutes, and you can do them quite easily by just checking what's up at the top. You can also get 10% by defeating each boss, so between those you should pretty much be done with your Celebration Achievement event in around about 30 minutes, give or take. You can go and defeat other world bosses if you wish to speed it up somehow, but generally speaking you just don't have to worry about it. It's just quite easy to do that. Like I said, the buff lasts 12 hours in game, so you don't have to worry about constantly refreshing it. Now you have the two 20% buffs, which is pretty cool. What I will suggest as well is you consider the Darkmoon Fair will be beginning shortly. On the 3rd of November, the Darkmoon Fair will begin. At the Darkmoon Fair, you can ride the carousel or buy Darkmoon Fair top hats, and those will give you a flat 10% gain to EXP and reputation. So not only do we have our two 10% buffs, but we will also have another 10% buff from the Darkmoon Fair. So immediately we're looking really good. Basically we are massively improving our EXP gain all the way up to 30%. But that is not all, because in fact another very easily obtainable buff will depend on your account. The Warband Mented Leveling buff is based on how many max level characters. Most characters, or most players by now, will have at the very least one max level character on their account. That means at the bare minimum, they will have a 5% buff. How the buff works is you gain a 5% buff for every single character that you have at max level. So once you are starting to level, you will have at the minimum a 35% boost. For most players like myself, probably a 40%, and for most really hardcore players, probably a 50% buff. This cancels out at 25%, so the max buffs that you can currently have is 55%, not providing for any potions or other. So immediately, that is a fantastic buff. But that is not all, because we're not done just yet. So the final buff that you can obtain to boost your character's leveling is also fairly accessible, although more accessible to legacy based characters. So the final buff will require us to go to the BFA expansion. Now to do this, you're going to have to go to the portal room. This is why it's a bit more of a legacy player thing. If you did not do BFA or have not journeyed through it or done a bit of content in there, which we'll talk about, then you are going to struggle to utilize this final buff. But hey, you know, it's one of those things. So when you are here, obviously you can go through. Then you can go to the vendors, which you'll find over here. Now in this area, there is a very special vendor that will sell you Warfront items. So it's called a Service Metal Quartermaster. This is obviously the Alliance side. And here you can find a drought of 10 lands. This only applies to characters below level 49, but it is a 10% EXP gain for those characters for an hour. Adding that on top of your boost that you have from the anniversary event, your account boost, and the eventual Darkmoon Fair boost is pretty big. But that's not the only boost you can do, because if you are part of a guild, under the guild perks, you will see the ability, if your guild has it unlocked, to buy a standard of unity. You have standard of unities, battle standards of unities, and banners of cooperation. These will increase your gain and honor from killing mobs for all guild members that stay within 100 yards of the battle standard by 15%. This is great to use during certain situations where you are going to be able to obviously farm a lot of mobs. So yeah, pretty huge EXP buffs. Overall, obviously it is kind of stacking a whole bunch of EXP buffs, and yes, 10% only applies below level 49, but with all of these boosts, your leveling experience goes a lot faster. Because you are going to have such a big EXP gain, you're going to defeat a lot of the curve, especially when it comes to the Dragon Isles, or when it comes to adventuring in the different regions like Kazalgar. You are going to be able to kind of do your own thing, as most of these areas have adventure mode that you may or may not have unlocked. Something that's also super important is it's not only about the boosts that you obtain. You have the EXP boost, you have the double boost, you have the Darkmoon Fair boost. Below level 49 you can have the drought of 10 lands. But the big thing is also the Timewalking. So classic Timewalking is going to be running the entire duration of the event. And classic Timewalking gives a huge EXP boost. So it's a very big boost. The scaling is also obviously very favorable to characters. So even with just these couple boosts, before even considering the Darkmoon Fair and everything, running those Timewalking dungeons is going to be absolutely amazing for you as a character. What I do suggest, just in general though, is that you consider leveling any character you currently have between 70 and 80 and finishing them off. The reason is because when they get to level 80, they will start to stack up on the Warband Mentored leveling boost, and this is going to help you with any characters you have that may reside below that threshold. So definitely something to consider. Other than that though, that's pretty much it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. It's always greatly appreciated. And as always, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.